Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to Vampires. Now, unlike the Daughters of Cacophony, I can tell you that the Kiasyd, of which you ask, are a bloodline. They very much do exist in these final nights, and they are a bloodline almost exclusively, and note that I say almost exclusively, within the Sabbat. Why is this? Well, they are a bloodline of Clan La Sombra, although not immediately obviously so. Unlike the Daughters of Cacophony, that could quite easily be compared to a Toreador that, just got a song stuck in his head, or a Samadhi, which could quite possibly be a Nosferatu with a bad skin condition. The Kiasyd do not resemble their main clan body. Certainly they wield the La Sombra's signature discipline of obtenebration, but that is probably where the resemblance ends. You see, you could argue that the Kiasyd have more in common with changelings than they do with Cainites, and that is perhaps where they have earned their epithet the Weirdlings. To give you some kind of context, I will need to take you on a history lesson. I do apologise. There once was a vampire named Marconius. In fact, there still is. He is the Archbishop of Strasbourg, as far as I'm aware. Marconius was a La Sombra. Note I say was. And he and his cohorts, in the reign of Julius the Apostate, decided that they would experiment with the blood. Undoubtedly not too dissimilar to how the Zemisi discovered the Tremere. Now, it is said that one should never deal with a mage. Just full stop. There is no if or but, or unless you've got a, no, you should never deal with a mage. Why? Because they have powers at their disposal that you just can't see and you cannot comprehend, you cannot understand them, and you definitely cannot use them. And yet, mages can. Mages can with a snap of their fingers. They may look like weak blood bags, but just because they burst under the slightest pressure doesn't mean they don't burst with a sheer amount of force that could even kill one of the kindred. Now, Marconius had not been taught this lesson. And so, he was trucking with a mage, I believe of House Flambeau, I think that was the name, although I may be mistaken. He and his cohorts were desperate to find the root of obtenebration, and so was this mage. Obtenebration, a discipline that allows you to wield the darkness of the abyss, tangible evil, blackness, entropy. Marconius was sure that this mage, for some reason, knew the answer. Now, the mage was not going to deny the vampire his, delusions, and so he sold him a potion, or an elixir, or some kind of vial of some concoction that was definitely not creme de menthe, and it certainly was not vitae. At least not vitae of the sort that Marconius had ever imbibed before. The mage told him to use his obtenebration on this elixir before imbibing it, and before sharing it around the rest of his cohorts, and that then he would be able to tap into the raw shadow stuff of the abyss. The mage then disappeared, although Marconius was quite satisfied. Such an imbecile was he. Believe me, he was not some scholar, but despite what some other Cainites may have you believe, Marconius was not a luminary of any sort. He was not up there with the Montanos and the Gratianos of Clan La Sombra. He was a rank neonate, nothing to his name, and yet, for some reason, he felt that he could tap into the power of the abyss, and so he did exactly what the mage advised him. After the mage had gone, he used the obtenebration on the elixir, he imbibed it, and so did his fellows, and the change that affected them did not just make their heads go a little funny. Maybe it changed more than what the mage expected to. Who knows? What it did do was make them stretch in height. to over 6 feet, sometimes as high as 7 feet tall. It made their skin go an alabaster white. It made their eyes lose their whites and turn completely black. In some cases, their ears became points. Their lips became blue. Their fingers became long. You could see their bones within their body through their skin, so taut, so chalky white was it. Some say you can even see the organs of a Kiasyd, for that is what they became. And it wasn't just some appearance deficit. It wasn't like they had become a new Nosferatu. No, they also brought with it a certain changeling ability. Marconius, in his blood, discovered this discipline known as mythoceria, or mythoceria, depending on who you ask. The ability to trap people in riddles, the ability to see the Fae and see where magic has been used. It was a discipline that allowed the Kiasyd to, well, act as Fae. Indeed, they can even perform the grandest trick that allows them to become mortal for a day. Now, this is a discipline the likes of which even the Cappadocians barely touched on with their mortis. They could do the same thing, interestingly enough. The Lasombra, however, were not happy with Marconius's discoveries. For whatever reason, maybe perhaps because it was not linked to the Abyss at all, at least not as far as the rest of the main body of the clan could tell, they locked those Kiasyd up and forbade them from ever studying the Abyss again. For some reason they didn't slay them. They merely imprisoned them in a cage of shadow stuff. Brooding, Marconius and his cohorts probed deeper into their obtenebration, probed deeper into their mythoceria, until they unlocked the true powers they had within their blood. The Lasombra, after the Sabbat were formed, released them from their cages, unaware of what these vampires truly were, because they were imprisoned before the Sabbat or Camarilla even graced the mind of Raphael de Corazon. And so the Kiasyd became a nascent bloodline exclusively, almost, within the Sabbat, because that is where their parent clan was, the Lasombra. Now, Marconius held no grudge against Clan Lasombra. He realised that he looked odd, that he acted odd, that he and the rest of the bloodline were just weird, and hence the name Weirdlings. They did not belong. They stood out, and indeed, because of their isolation for so long, away from the main body of the clan, they really didn't have anything in common with the rest of the Lasombra. They were not interested in rising up and overthrowing their elders. They were interested in discovery. Now that they were free, they could continue to research. They could continue to research not just the Abyss, but its links to the realm of the Fae. They had discovered that the astral plane, the Umbra, the Abyss, all of this was connected. The Kiasyd, by this point, were not dumb. Even Marconius, he had learned, and so he and his children, such as Bartholomew, a great Kiasyd scholar, and Julia, these names have since gone down in history among the Kiasyd as some of the greatest scholars of Fae and Cainite both. That is not to say that the Fae have any great love for the Kiasyd, far from it. The Kiasyd, when they catch a Fae, will torture and eventually drink of their blood. And this is where the rather horrific tales of the Kiasyd come in. While they may not participate in Sabbat war bands for the most part, they do have odd predilections. The most rational vampires will tell you that the Kiasyd's weakness is against cold iron. If you can strike one with cold iron, it will burn them as if the sun was scorching their skin. Now, what is cold iron? Untempered iron is what I understand the common use of it is, but how often do you come across untempered iron in these nights? This should surely make the Kiasyd invulnerable, and yet they do not propagate terribly frequently. And this would lead you to believe that, as they hold very few positions of power, that there is something else restricting them, something else that even the rest of the Sabbat cannot stomach. Now, I have heard that they will only feed from children, or indeed, because of the Fae's great love of virgins, they will only feed from virgins, but they prefer children. I have also heard that they will only feed from these virgins after they have skinned them. These are not things that I am making up on the spot. These are things that I have read, or that I have been told of the Kiasyd, that they will flay their victims so that they have the virgin's skin and the virgin's hair to weave into strange instruments to help them with their research, and then they will feed from the body, keeping it alive with their mythoceria, with their obtenebration, cocooning the poor creature that they have set upon in foul magics. This puts the Sabbat on edge. Even the Zimisy very rarely go to such horrific lengths, because the Zimisy, psychotic as a lot of them may be, they may be comfortable in exhibiting it, but that's because they like to frighten people. They like to show off how big and hard and strong and scary they all are, and so do the La Sombra. The Kiasyd, though, they don't seem particularly proud of what they do. They don't see it as particularly scary or egregious behaviour. They see it as completely natural. They wouldn't have it any other way. So what is the Kiasyd's role in these final nights? Just as scholars of the damned? Hardly. The Kiasyd recently have been making greater and greater forays into, well, the Canaanite world of politics, the Canaanite world of, indeed, research, nodism. It's a new school for the Kiasyd, but I understand that they have exchanged tomes and research with Setites, with a famous Gangrel scholar by the name of Beckett, and this has led them to dealing with the Camarilla and realising that things on the other side of the fence aren't actually that different to how they are in the Sabbat. After all, when the Kiasyd drink from the chalice during the retie that's been passed around, they always wipe the cusp. They wipe the edge of the chalice because they don't want the filthy bugs that are swimming around on Sabbat lips. The Kiasyd are very exclusive. They do not like to stick to other vampires. Indeed, they do not even like to share a city with another Kiasyd. They apparently meet up every 50 years or so in order to exchange knowledge, but every 50 years is quite a long time. So, for the most part, Kiasyd are solitary animals. And animals is what they are. If a child complains of a boogeyman living in the floor above the library, that when studying after school, you can hear creaking in the floorboards up ahead. And some people talk about the ghost that lives up there. Some talk about the old reclusive librarian that lives up there and snatches kiddies to have his wicked way with. They may well be talking about a Kiasyd. In fact, they probably are. Now, the Kiasyd are not, as I say, exclusively in the Sabbat. That is a misnomer. People presume that because they are part of the La Sombra, they are part of the Sabbat as well. They have very, very little interest in destroying antediluvians. They have very, very little interest in taking war to the Camarilla. They will go wherever the knowledge is. And they do say that some Kiasyd in these nights have taken up the gun and the sword to use against other vampires, often in order to obtain scholarly works, ancient tomes, occult rituals. That is, if their obtenebration, their mythoceria, and their dominate disciplines do not help them all by themselves. The Kiasyd are worrying because they've been ignored for around 600 years. They are one of the oldest still existing bloodlines. The Salubri were a clan. The Bali arguably are a clan. The daughters of Cacophony have only emerged within the last 200 years. The Samadi, a roughly similar period. Others have only recently emerged in this last century. The Kiasyd have been around for nearly 1,000 years in total. Admittedly, several of those centuries they were locked up, but vampires do not just sit idle. They think, they plan, They come up with lots of horrible ways in which to exact vengeance against something, against someone. Of course, here's a greater conspiracy for you. The mage of House Flambeau that gave them the potion, that turned them into these weirdlings, that set them on this path, what is his role in all of this? What is the role of his descendants in all of this? Has he been manipulating them all along? Has he been pushing them toward a certain path, a certain trajectory, just so that they discover something for him? Mages are not stupid. And perhaps when the elder clan La Sombra locked the Kiasyd up, they knew exactly what they were doing, and when the Sabbat La Sombra rose up and released them, they really did not. Thank you very much for watching.